Good morning everyone, and welcome into the kitchen for another edition of Naughty Nighty Baking. And today we're using the Lumix camera to video this, so it'll be very interesting to see the quality and how it turns out. Anyway, today's going to be something very different. It's going to be a cake with a few tweaks. It's my own recipe, and it's going to be a pecan pound cake with butterscotch topping. Now the pecans aren't going to be just opening a bag and flipping them into the batter and calling it done. No, we're going to do a few things to the pecans to make them a little special. So when we add them in and somebody takes a bite of this cake, every bite, no matter whether it's the top, the middle, it's going to be a flavor explosion for them. So we're going to be using the bundt cake pan again. It's a great general duty pan. It also makes a good size cake and a cake that could last you for a week or so. So having done the introduction here, come on over to the countertop and let's look at the ingredients that we're going to be using in this rather unique and I hope tasty pound cake. Okay, now because this is a pound cake, it's built on the traditional pound cake platform. We have our flour, and I've set aside the flour in another bowl here, which I'll grab and just show here. This is 4 cups of flour, which if you were to weigh it would be a pound. We also have 3 cups of sugar here, and I did modify this for 2.5 to not make it too sweet. And if you were to have 3 cups of sugar and measure that, that is also 1 pound. And we have a pound of butter over here. So that's the big 3, the flour, the butter, and the eggs. And that's your basic ingredients. And then you also need some milk here. We're going to be using 3/4 cup of milk. We need 6 eggs, and they should be warmed up, and your butter should be warmed up to room temperature. We're going to add just a little 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder for a little more lift. We have almond extract, vanilla extract. We're going to be using a teaspoon of each one of them. We're going to be using a little extra sugar just for glazing the pecans here. A little bit of salt. And this is the walnuts. It's a not walnuts, but pecans. It's a 6-ounce bag of pecans. We're going to hold back about maybe 10 of these for topping the cake with our icing. And we're also going to be using, I bought one of the bags, an 11-ounce bag of the butterscotch morsels. So as usual, first thing we do, and the thing that's going to be most time consuming here, is we've got to go ahead and use our mixer here and cream the butter and sugar. Actually, before we do that, we want to go ahead and get a skillet or a frying pan, and we're going to prepare the nuts, the pecans here, or pecans, if you prefer. And we have the 6-ounce bag here, and I'm going to reserve about 10 of these. But I've melted a couple tablespoons. I'm melting a couple tablespoons of butter in the skillet down here, as you can probably see right there. And let me make sure that's thoroughly melted. Let me get my little wooden spoon here. I have to have that. I'll go ahead and melt that. And this is an important step. If you take regular, I don't want to call them raw pecans, and you put them into a cake as most people do, you're missing out a gigantic part of the flavor component. We actually want to salt and sugar glaze these, so when you bite into these in the pound cake, you're going to have a flavor explosion in your mouth, and you're going to really enjoy it. Let me go ahead and pour these. We don't want to overcook them. We don't want to burn them. Put these in, and then, like I said, I'm going to save a few of them for making the topping, and that'll be fine. And I'll put these in here into the butter. And what you want to do is stir these into the butter really well. Make sure they're all coated really well. Okay, and get them into a bunch. Put them in a bunch in the center of the pan like you see here. And then take a little bit of sugar, hit the top of them with a little bit of sugar, and then take a little bit of salt, and carefully, don't overdo it, hit the top of them with a little salt, okay? And the trick is you want to keep stirring them. And I tell you, when you bite into these in that cake, I'll tell you, it's going to be something that your mouth is not prepared for something that tastes that good. So I'll bring you down here. We'll get a look at the pan here as they're prepping up. Okay, you're not going to miss a thing. Okay, remember the trick now is you want to keep moving these around to pick all that butter, sugar, and salt goodness up in there. We're not going to, these are only going to go for a couple minutes. We don't want these to burn, but we do want to make sure that that glazing is going to stick to them. So you want to get them into a pile again, and I'll grab a little bit of the sugar here. I don't think Mr. Sugar here will mind. And I'll go ahead and hit the top of them one more time. Okay. And let me tell you, that salt and sugar combo on these is just going to taste amazing. So you see them starting to crackle there. It gives them a little bit of a finish too. Otherwise, I find when you get nuts that haven't been properly prepared in baked goods, they just don't, it's almost like you're paying so much money for pecans, and then when it comes time to use them, you're just dumping the bag in, and you're not getting that maximum flavor out of them. So I'm going to let these go about one more minute here. You can hear them start sizzling away, and don't they look good? They look awesome. I don't want to overdo it. I'm now going to take it off the heat, my skillet, and sit it on the side there, and keep stirring a little bit. If you use a cast iron skillet like I do, let me turn this fan on a little bit. If you use a cast iron skillet like I do, then you know it retains heat for a long time after you turn it off. So you want to make sure to keep them moving. Okay, you don't want any burns. And once that temperature drops down a little bit, you'll be all right. Okay, and that's what we're going to be adding in to our cake today for a real nice flavor explosion here. So, okay, now we can get over to cream our butter and sugar. Remember, your butter should be softened. It should not be like just taken out of the refrigerator, or it's very hard to cream it. Don't use a microwave to soften it, okay? You just are not going to have the same outcome. Remember, the reason that we do the creaming is to make sure we have a fluffy cake. This really doesn't use, most of these pound cakes don't even use baking powder. We're just going to use a tiny little bit. They depend on having that sugar and that sugar butter cream as well as you possibly can. So you always love that top-down view, huh? Yeah. Naughty Nightie Baking. I've got the sugar and the butter loaded up inside of the mixer. And the trick is, guys, and I'm not going to show the whole creaming process. I'll check you when it's about halfway through and then done. But the reason you do this is to get a lot of air whipped into your cake to make it very light, because pound cakes are dense. You're never going to make them light, but lighter, okay? And it also incorporates, when that air gets incorporated, it helps it rise a little bit. Those air bubbles create pockets of space, so you don't have that density to it. Yes, I use a little bit of baking powder. Traditional pound cake recipes don't. It's kind of like a safeguard to me, just in case I don't do it well enough in terms of the creaming of the butter and the sugar. Take your time. This should take about 10 minutes. This is the longest part of doing this cake, but it's the part that has to be done the best. I'll see you in a little while when the creaming is done. Okay. I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of almond extract right on in. Close that up good. And then I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Okay, so you get the hint of nut. It won't be overpowering. You'll get that vanilla base. So take a second and whip that in. That's the trick here. Every step that you make, you want to make sure you thoroughly incorporate your ingredients. Now, if you're good at one-handed egg cracking, then by all means do it. I've never had any issue doing it, but make sure if you're not, that you do one at a time, or you do them all in a bowl first and then pour them in one at a time. That's the absolute easiest way to do it. So one by one, we want to fold them in. One at a time. Once in a while, you can stop and turn off the mixer and scrape down the sides a little bit too. I'm going to be putting 6 eggs in. So now it's time to prepare the flour, salt, and baking powder. Now what I want to do here, guys, is I'm going to be using a very little bit of baking powder. Don't need to do a lot because we're depending on the creaming that we did to do that. So I'm going to put in about 3/4 of a teaspoon of the baking powder. Try to get the aluminum free if you can. I think that's probably healthier for you. And somewhere, yeah, I have my sugar marking here. I'm going to be using just about 1/4 of a teaspoon sugar. Throw that in. Next thing to do is grab your whisk here and make sure that's incorporated really well. You don't want any spots in the cake that have the spots in the cake that don't have baking powder, or else it'll rise unevenly and you'll have problems. Plus, people like to see this part. Okay, make sure, take your time. You know, you're putting all this money, all these ingredients. This is not a cheap cake. All this time and all this effort and all these ingredients to make this cake. So you want to make sure you do things step by step. Next thing we're going to do is prepare 3/4 of a cup of milk. Okay, and I'm going to sit that on the side now. I'm going to pop this in the refrigerator so it doesn't spoil. Okay, and now we're just going to alternate back and forth between adding our flour mixture and adding our milk. So I'll bring you in closer and we'll take a look at this process. Everything else is in. All we have to do is get our flour, salt, and baking powder mix in, alternated with the milk. We'll do this in 2 steps. The dry, wet, and then finally we'll fold in our pecans and get our bun pan greased up and be ready to go, okay? Hang in there. Okay, when you combine this, you want to be very careful, okay? When you do this, you don't want You don't want this flour to fly everywhere. So the first thing we're going to do is put about half of the flour mix in there. Okay, about half of it. Turn your speed down low on your mixer. Go ahead and send that in there. Let that combine in real good. You don't want to overbeat these cakes. If you overbeat, it makes it tough. Scrape down your sides a little bit too as you go along. Okay. Always a good thing to do. Now I can take my speed up a little bit. Now take it down and I'll add half of the milk mixture in here. Half of 3/4 of a cup. Lower it down, turn the speed down, and get that incorporated. Stop that. Raise up our mixer. Add the last of our flour mixture in there. Make sure you get all that flour, baking powder, and salt goodness in there. You can now lower that down. Lower your speed again. Get that incorporated. Isn't this fun? I just love baking. Pop that in, and then gradually we can take our speed up. This way the stuff doesn't fly all over the flour. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and add the last bit of the milk. Get that working real good. Don't overbeat it. I'll stop after about 20 seconds, and I'll go ahead and scrape down the side here. That batter is looking really good. We just want to make sure all that's incorporated in there, okay? Just like so. Okay, one more mix. And we should be good to go for our final step. This has been a lot of fun, hasn't it? There's our batter there. I've now greased a sprayed with the non-stick spray, the bundt pan, and hit that really well. You don't want your cake ruined or to lose its form because it's stuck to the form there, the bundt form. I now have my what I call my caramelized pecans bits here. I'm going to go ahead and add them in. Okay. Add that right into the mix, and what I want to do is I don't want to break these up. I just want to fold it in, and folding is that process of turning it under in itself. Okay, just fold them in, take your time. You don't want the bits to break all up and start to discolor the cake, but fold them in, and this is really a beautiful silky thick batter, but you want to spread them all throughout the hole so you don't have sections that have a lot. Make sure to pull from the bottom and raise it up to the top. We're not beating it here, so it's not going to increase the toughness of it. We're just pulling and putting those nuts throughout. Okay, so I think that they're pretty well distributed. I now just want to take my pot here, and we're going to be my bundt form here, and we're going to be cooking this for about an hour and 40 minutes, and I'll tell you the temperature. I want to double check that. I'm going to go ahead and put that in, and put in a little bit at a time on each side. Get that spread out. And I'm just putting one pop in each section here. It's a little difficult because this is really heavy. this batter here, and then we'll kind of smooth it down and get it spread as evenly as we can on here, guys. Don't panic, Rosie is on the job. Okay, I'll want that down the center there. One more over here, and we can clean that. It'll clean up a little bit when it bakes too. Make sure you get all of that goodness out, okay? Then it's simply a matter, and let me get a paper towel here. Now it's simply a matter of kind of cleaning that up a little bit, especially the center tower. And don't eat any raw dough or batter, okay? You have uncooked eggs in it. So now we just want to spin it and turn it here, okay? And all we're doing is spreading that batter. And of course it will spread when it hits the oven. See that that cleaned up really well there. Okay. All right. Doesn't that look absolutely gorgeous? So let me just take a quick peek over at the the temperature here. Ooh, yeah. This is 300 degrees, guys. 300 degrees for an hour and 40 minutes. So the word is low and slow. And here she goes into the oven, okay? Alright, here we go. I've got a convection oven, so I'm going to turn on the light and the fan. I'll see you in an hour and 40 minutes. No peeking now. You don't want the cake to collapse in there. I know you're all excited there. I got to look at that cake. No, you don't, okay? See you in a bit, guys. Okay, let me just glove up here. We will pull it out. See how she looks. You excited, Missy Jen? Your pecan?
Yeah.
Savory and sweet pecans. Poundcake. Look at that. What do you think about that?
Looks good.
We're going to let that cool off, and then we're going to be back to give that a nice glaze in there. So we will see you in a bit. Are you excited? Yes, I am. Been a great naughty nighty baking today. Switch it up 2 hours later. I can't wear a nightie all day. But check back in a little bit. We will we'll depan it here, and then we'll get the glaze all set. Thank you, Missy Jen.
You're welcome, honey.
Okay, she's plated up, cooled off really nicely. Doesn't look beautiful. So now it's time to make our topping here, and all I did was put about 2 tablespoons of corn syrup with 1 cup of the butterscotch chips here, and I'm now going to go ahead and add in my pieces of pecan, and there they go. I had them on a piece of parchment paper, and I'm going to kind of mix them in. It's a little hard to do this with one hand. In a second, I'm going to give the camera to Missy Jen. Thank you again, Missy Jen, and I've now folded it in. I'm going to now go ahead and carefully kind of work that around here. And that's going to form our glaze. And I'm putting the pecans where they fall to. And this is setting up very quickly, so you have to really get this down on here and just spread that a little bit. That pecans, and just work it into all the different areas. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can always shift the pecan into a different area. Doesn't that look wonderful? What do you think about that, Missy Jen?
It's beautiful.
That is that's bakery worthy right there, guys. That looks like the real deal. So, all right, there it is. We just with clean hands, which I have. I just got out of the shower and just cleaned them, washed real good. Pecan, butterscotch glazed pound cake for your enjoyment. Thanks so much for being along, everybody, and stay tuned. Always more Naughty Nightie baking to come. And by far, I think this was my favorite one of all. So, well, thanks for being along. Maybe I'll put a little addendum on tonight on the video. It's still hours and hours until dinner time, but we shall see. But you just know looking at it. How does it taste, Missy Jen? It tastes
Delicious.
delicious. It's gonna taste good with that nice butterscotch
Yummy, yummy.
glaze on it. Thanks so much for being along, everyone.